Hello, welcome to Module 8. As a reminder, you are going to need your Graham and Harris Writing Better Effective Strategies for Teaching Students with Learning Difficulties for this week. If you have not already purchased this book, you'll need to do so immediately because your first quiz for this book is actually due this coming Tuesday. So you'll need to make sure that you have that text. I suggest you go to your the bookstore at CSU Pueblo, or order online, or just a bookstore in your own local area to get the book. But you'll need that pronto, and I will be sending out a reminder for you this week. Before we start talking about this topic for this week, I want to let you know that I have a basic math project rubric, and it's not really a rubric, it just kind of designates the points, as you can see, because each of you comes in with a different diverse project, and so kind of setting criteria for everybody to achieve is much more difficult because you all are not in the same type of setting, and that would be unfair to expect something different. But as you know, I have expectations still within the sections that you're supposed to provide me things. As you can see here, your background information on students is 20 points possible, 10 points per student. Assessment plan and samples is 20 points, 15 points for your assessment plan, 5 points for samples. And what I mean by samples is I'd like a print off of the test score report, or I'd like to see actually the test that the student completed, or other curriculum-based measurement example that the student completed as a sample of what you collected for your assessment. Section 3 is to develop goals and objectives. As I've mentioned before, this is worth 20 points. You need to make sure that you have SMART goals and objectives. Your objectives should be copy and paste basically from your lessons and put into this section for me as a whole. Your goal, of course, is going to be your goal for what your students are going to get out of the entire project. So your goal is going to be a lot more broad, where your objectives are going to be very specific. Section 4 is your plan and collaborate on your 5 lesson plans. Make sure that you have a conceptual, declarative, procedural, problem solving, and then a free choice one, as well as incorporating your co-teaching, your teacher-created materials or adapted materials, your technology, and also your peer-mediated instruction, worth 100 points. Each lesson plan is worth 20. If you are missing any of those components, you will be docked points. Section 5 is a review of progress and next step. 10 points for a review, 10 points for next step. What I mean by review is if you were actually able to teach the lesson, I want you to tell me how the students performed. If you weren't able to teach, tell me how you think they would have performed for a review of progress. Your next steps are going to be what the students should do after you're done teaching these lessons. What would be the next thing that student would still need? Would that student still need repetition? Would that student be able to master that to move on, etc.? I want you to give me that information. Last but not least is your reference section. This is worth 20 points. I'm looking for APA and MLA format. If you do not have that, you are not getting the points. Once again, if you have any component of this entire project that you were unable to do or had difficulty with in those sections, please give me a detailed explanation as to why, so that way I grade you appropriately. Module 8 is that transition between math and writing, where I'm actually going to be integrating them together, and there's a key reason why I implemented ELL into this topic. ELL, this is one of those things that there's a lot of ELL strategies out there that are good for all students. The strategies can be used in math, the strategies can be used in social studies, the strategies could be used in science, and the strategies could be used in writing, etc. It could be throughout everything. I have a separate video that I'd like you to watch. It was created by my good friend. The presentation was of my good friend Sandy Owen, who is an ELL instructor in District 70, and she has been for quite some time and has a wealth of knowledge. She has been able to give me her personal contact information for you if you'd like to ask her any questions or if you need any help with anything. The top one listed here is her personal district email. The second one is her personal one. Please know that you might have and might come across students who come to you. It's very rare, but it can happen, where you have a student who is both ELL and special education, and making sure that you have the right strategies in place to be used for both is key. Please watch the video to find out more about this topic. This week you are also going to be completing your written expression test for me. You're going to be printing it off, filling it out, and sending it back to me. You can either fax or scan and then email it to me, whichever way is best for you. I've included my fax number here. This fax number goes straight to my email anyway, so you don't need to worry about a cover page if you're sending it that way. So as we're talking about integrating writing and math, it's very crucial that we actually do more of cross-curricular as much as we possibly can. Basically, you know this, we write in everything. It's just because it's social studies does not mean you do not write. Just because it's science doesn't mean that you don't write. math doesn't mean that you don't write. I understand that there are different concepts and different topics, but you're still using writing to communicate in every single content area. So it's really important, specifically with writing and math, to make that integration happen. You want to make sure that you could even do this by connecting literature and math in a very fun way. For example, at a younger level, I've given you this one where students could actually put math rhymes and songs and stories to coming up and putting things together. Even in poetry, putting it there. Or if you have a book in general, such as The Grapes of Math, or I can't think of at the top of my head, but there's a variety of different resources already out there that incorporate math into a story in one way or another. So at a very young age, it's easy to do this, but you could also do this at an older age by allowing your older students to actually come up with their own word problems or story problems for understanding the math concept, rather than them solving those math problems and concepts, having them create their own. It shows a deep level of understanding in math if students are able to write down exactly what they think. There's so much research-based strategies that are out there for both writing and math, and basically you can use them intermingled with one another. The writing strategies you're going to learn about are a great deal from your Graham and Harris text. You've already learned a great deal of math strategies from your Hudson and Miller book, as well as your Ashlock text. How can you implement writing in math? It's really simple. Math already has it built in, so there's nothing special that you have to do. It's just a matter of your expectation of what you want your writers to demonstrate for you when they're writing in math. That's the key. In math, all the time, students have problems where they have to solve something and then it asks them to explain how they know. Explain why that problem works that way. Especially on the state assessments, it's always asked every single year at all levels. How do you know this problem is set up this way? Well, just like you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, if you ask somebody to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich how to do that, they might say get some bread, get your peanut butter, get your jelly, put the peanut butter and jelly into the bread, you're good. There's your sandwich. It's not as simple as that. It's much more detailed. How many slices of bread do I get out of the bag? How many scoops of jelly versus how many scoops of peanut butter do I need to use? What supplies do I need? Do I need a spoon? Do I need a knife? Etc. There's more details that go into setting that up and having somebody understand so that they get the same product at the end that everybody could get. How would you plan instruction for writing a math lesson and vice versa? It's important that we actually devote the time to setting up a writing strategy when we're expecting them to write in math, or if we're using math language, understanding how that would look in when we're writing it grammatically and how it would make sense. What does research state about integrating both content areas and student achievement? I'm sure you could guess that the research that's behind it is very high. The more students use writing across all curriculum, the higher their writing scores are going to be. In math, their math scores are going to be much higher, specifically because once they have that deeper conceptual knowledge that's listed there, your students are going to be able to perform higher level of math thinking and rationale behind what they're doing. So you'll see student achievement race through the roof if you have students really give that conceptual understanding, but then demonstrate via writing how they know what they know. And that applies to all students, not just students who struggle with writing or math, but to all students. Even our gifted and talented students have a really difficult time of telling how they know. They just come up with the answer and it just happens so quickly for them. They really don't understand the steps of how their brain got there. Making them slow down and do that, you'll be very surprised to see what you get. Even students in general have a difficult time with this as a whole. Writing. It's really important as you are going to be taking that written expression test to understand your own knowledge base in terms of what you know about rules of grammar, what spelling generalization rules you have, style rules, etc. If you as a teacher do not have those tools in your tool bag, it's really hard to expect that out of your students. But not only that, if your students provide you something and you think, oh, that's great because that's all that you know, it's not going to show that they are actually good, fantastic writers if you have your own deficits. So the reason I gave you that written expression test is for you to check your own knowledge. It's not a bad thing. It just might be one of those times to refresh yourself on these concepts, as you might not be the main language arts teacher and haven't seen this for a while, and that's okay. Everybody's able to communicate in their own way, but knowing the proper roles will help your students to be stronger writers. And that wraps us up for this week. Before I forget, your password for this week is practice. Please send the word practice to me via email this week. I hope you have a great week. Take care.